regulator, the upstream petroleum unit, thank you, Mr. Abasab, the upstream petroleum unit is regarded as the regulator for this upstream sector. In terms of capacity, do we have the capacity? One can never say that you are overcapacitated. We are still learning. This is a new sector for us all. We are also in the process of continue building capacity. We have the institutions like Petrofund and other institutions that assist in helping us capacitate Namibians to, meaningfully participate in this particular sector, whether it is from a private sector's point of view or whether it is a government point of view. So capacity is an ongoing process. In terms of do we have enough manpower, I think that is maybe where your question comes in. We are still a very small unit. We have a very ambitious plan to expand our unit. At the moment, we are, when the unit was taken from the ministry, we have about, I think 13? Huh? Yeah, so she reminded me, she said 8. So I was thinking 13. But in any case, that is a very, very low capacity in terms of skills, manpower. And we are busy trying to frame a structure that would enable us to cater for each and every area where we would want to fully manage this sector. We would have, let's say, potentially a structure that speaks of over 160 people, as opposed to the 8 that we have currently. So, which means that we would need to have inspectors that goes out there, see what the companies are doing, whether they are complying to what we would want to achieve, hold them accountable, look at the plans that they are presenting to government and use those plans as a benchmark to go and do. I don't know if you follow the media. Recently, we went to 3 countries where we did a benchmark. We went to Guyana, we went to Angola, and we went to Norway. And the experiences there kind of shocked us because people there are very serious when it comes to this sector. And we also need to be serious, because if we are not serious, we are going to lose an opportunity to make sure that, things are done right. And one of the things that we want to achieve in doing things right is making sure that we have enough and sufficient manpower. Yeah, we want to see that there are commercial people also in this particular structure, people that when the oil is being extracted, there should be a proper auditing. We should keep track how much oil is being extracted. There must be a proper metering system in place so that we have the people and the capacity to follow and say, but, this is what is taken from our waters. This is what is taken from our oil. And from that, this is what is owed to government. So that is basically what we want to achieve. It is something that is very serious, and that is why we need your voices, to help us strengthen what we want to achieve. Thank you so much. Yeah, I think that covered the first round of questions. Mr. Abasab, are you happy? Who? Okay, I was just informed by the interim MD that your questions will be addressed to later. Ne? When it comes to Namcor, you will hear from the horse's mouth herself. Thank you so much. Can we have more questions, please?
Thank you. My name is Abisai Constantinus. And I wanted to...
Abisai, say Dr. Abisai, okay, so we can hear you well.
Yeah, Dr. Abisai Constantinus, yeah. I really want to spend at least a second and applaud you. I think the local content policy, this specific one, is the best thing since independence, and I mean it. You see what happened in Nigeria in 2009. The local content policy in Nigeria was only introduced in 2009. And yet the benefits that they've benefited in the past, I don't know, is it 16 years? Almost equals to the duration that they've benefited since they started producing oil in 1964. So this is a very important policy for our country. And there's not the amount of liberation we are going to get from this policy. It's probably only compared to when we get independence as a country. Now, my comment or contribution is actually, it's almost like I want to paint a picture of where these discoveries have happened, and they've happened at sea. And me, as a maritime professional, I've always I've been a big advocate for maritime literacy in our country. So Namibia is about 800,000 square kilometers. Our maritime territory is bigger than that. So we've got an exclusive economic zone which is bigger than, or let's say the width is over 300 nautical miles. So, but the maritime industry has not received any attention or really which, I don't even know how to put it into words, but if you think that the rig which discovered, which is going to pump that oil is at sea, the people going to and back from these ships will have to be transported by ship. The ports are operating under in the maritime space. Yet, Namibia, we are still applying the Admiralty Court Act of 1960, which still speaks of sailing ships. We are still using English law to adjudicate maritime cases. Namibia is not fully compliant in terms of MARPOL. So even if an accident happens and our seas are polluted, Namibia won't really be compensated because we don't even comply with the compensation convention, which allows us, or the fund convention. Even when we look at the training and certification of seafarers, or all those people who are going to work at sea, we're still using the South African Merchant Shipping Act of 1951. Namibia is struggling to produce seafarers. I was an officer at De Beers. I became a pilot in the port here in Walvisbay and Ludrats. We don't have one locally trained pilot. Where are we going to train all these people? Now, I've taught at university. I taught at CPUT. I taught at UNAM. And I can tell you that UNAM is so far from being ready to produce even one student more than a primary school here would produce a pilot, because they don't understand. Now, we are saying we need to train our people to be able to work on a rig. But the laws that are dictating these qualifications, Namibians don't actually understand this. Even the qualification authority, they are not listing these maritime safety courses, just a safety course. And just to put this in context, if we just got the Merchant Shipping Act right, if we just got our training requirements in terms of seafarers right, we are going just from De Beers, not from oil and gas, just from De Beers, right? At least per year, we are going to generate over $1 billion in revenue, just from De Beers, okay? A two-week course, global GMDSS or survival at sea course, costs 5,000, 2 weeks, which we now have to pay to CPUT. But if you add now your accommodation, you add your transportation, you add S&T and all those things. So with oil and gas now, oil and gas is basically dwarfing all the industries of Namibia, like maybe a full stop to an entire page. That's the magnitude. So my sort of contribution is just this. As much as we're talking about local content, we also need to create a platform for local content. But the country cannot even issue a driver's license. It almost becomes semi-hypocritical. And that's always been my point. Whether it's, when we look at NAMFI, NAMFI, they started with class 2, now they're at class 5 or class 4, which means even NAMFI cannot even produce captains for the fishing industry. NAMFI cannot even produce TAC masters for Namcor. So that's where I'm trying to say, let's challenge ourselves to make sure that we create a platform and really that we build a house where we can actually police. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Jan. I'm an Afrikaans Namibian, so if my English runs out, just give me a while. I'm just searching for English words in my mind then. So regarding the local content policy, thanks for, from Namibia's side, for the government, what you've put in here. The question that we do have is the exclusion definition, to put it that way, of a local company. I'm just adding to the question that you've had also regarding 51% beneficial ownership. Now, as a company, and I work for Manica Group Namibia, we are not against this exclusion definition, to put it that way. The question that we have is, what is the expected timeline for a company to comply? Because yes, there's been a lot of investments made and contributions made of such a company of such a magnitude to the Namibian economy, and I believe many people working in Walvisbay today can give thanks to a company like Manica, who supported them economically and also trained individuals who has become owners of their own businesses that came through the ranks of a company like Manica. The problem is that you cannot just change ownership overnight, because there's a value to ownership, and that value either needs to be sold off and paid back economically and supported locally. That's my first question. The second question is pertaining to the key indicators on training. The first is that it's stated here that each training should be approved by the ministry. I'm not sure which ministry, and also to what level does this training really go that you state here? Because if you continue in the key indicator, just let me finalize that. So they do say here that contractors are free to give their own training apart from the training which has been sent for the approval, but such other training shall not count for the purposes of benchmarking the local content policy. That's the one. And then the next one is the expectation that the training will not be constituted as skills development expenditure if it is like a bursary or there's a condition to it. Now, we do understand that any investment in education is not just an investment for the company, and the company would like to derive some form of benefit from that investment, but the investment stays for always for the individual who received that training or the support to have gone on such training. So just maybe an opinion from the chair or you guys in front. See, there goes my English. From you guys in front regarding the unconditional payment or the unconditional support.
Specific, the page number you are reading from?
38 and 39.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. My name is Samuel Shopala. I'm a colleague of Jan. So we stumble with English and Afrikaans all along. My point, basically, when I look at the document, it's represent all that we're demanding for, that we're looking forward to, and what we want the sector that comes and operate to do for us. But what is missing in that, it's a piece where it says, what are we going to do? And one of the items that I would probably want to see is where is the committee that is going to hold all the regulators accountable so that the services and the goods that we're going to deliver, that each and every one of us are going to participate in, are not being delayed, then therefore delaying also the processes that need to take place and the drilling, that there's someone in there that is holding everybody accountable, that these things do not come to a standstill. So that's one of the things that I would probably want to see there. What we have seen with just currently, because we do all logistics and it's all services. So everywhere you have to work with a regulator. You find that a group of people or a team from one ministry does not even speak to the team on the other ministry, but they have got the custodian over that product so that it crosses the borders to wherever it's supposed to go. And obviously, these things will not stop. Even with the oil and gas now, it will not stop. We already have got issues in that arena. So we need to make sure that within that policy, there should be a team responsible in ensuring that whenever there are regulatory changes, that they are cascaded correctly, that are communicated with everybody correctly, and then there is opportunity for input from everybody else before it's just become a bottleneck and to whatever we want to achieve. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me respond to the doctor's concern. Where is the doctor? I can't see him. So it's a timeout for him, eh? Okay, so the last question, I think the speaker refers to the IAP. That is what we call the Implementation Action Plan. And that goes to the issue of monitoring and evaluation, making sure that the stakeholders are meaningfully participating and bringing their side. So the policy will still be further developed to annex the Implementation Action Plan. It will be broad enough to spell out which particular key player is responsible for what in the policy. As the policy now speaks, it is a broad document. It speaks to the operators, it speaks to the subcontractors, it speaks to the tertiary education institutions, it speaks to the VTCs also, it speaks to the financial sectors, it speaks to the insurance sectors. Basically, it speaks to everybody, and what this policy is saying that this is what we want to achieve. This is our aspirations. You as a key stakeholder, you have a role to play in this. It's not for us to spell out to them specifically what they need to do, but it is for them to understand what is it that we want to achieve and then hold them accountable and see how best they are achieving our goals and our visions and our missions. If I have to take the issue of education and training, yes, we are telling the tertiary institutions and the VTCs that you should equip yourself, you should create curriculum, you should make sure that Namibians participate at all levels in this industry. For them, it is for them now to sit back and see how best they can validate that and come up with the programs and the curriculums to contribute to what we want to achieve. We do not want to dictate to them, but we would want to say, this is what we want to achieve. And then at the end of the day, we can then come and monitor and evaluate what they have done and see whether those are filling the gaps or there are still gaps that still needs to be filled. I think that is basically what the policy wants to achieve. On the issue of, I see the doctor is back in the room. Thank you very much, doctor, for your contribution. Most of what you are talking, your questions or your contributions, is referring to the maritime space. I'm more of the oil and gas area, but there is a coexistence in the same ecosystem when it comes to maritime and oil and gas, fisheries, and so on and so on. Look, we need to give Namibia and government credit. We discovered oil in 2022. And look at what we have done so far. We have trained over 400 Namibians. And we are still training Namibians. We are still capacitating ourselves. So nothing happens overnight, but we are mindful also of the gaps that needs to be filled. It is very important that what you have presented, those concerns, especially when it comes to the Ministry of Works and Transport, who have a dedicated department on maritime, it is also important that they come to the table. It is also important that there is a coexistence and a synergy of what we want to achieve and what their vision is in terms of the maritime space. It is very important. So I do not want to put myself in their role and answer for them. But what I want to say is that I acknowledge that there is a need for better and enhanced synergies between what the oil and gas industry is doing and what is happening in the maritime space. Because it is an area that we share the waters, we share fisheries, we share the diamond mining, we share oil and gas, and so many other resources. So, Doctor, thank you very much. I do not want to be so much implicit on that, but I can say that we have taken note of your input. Let me just quickly check. Yeah, and the same on the training requirements. My understanding from Petrofund is that, and they have done a good job, they provide training in phases. What I mean by phases is that we are currently in the exploration phase, moving now to the appraisal phase, later to the development phase, and then the production phase, and maybe later the decommissioning phase. Petrofund is providing training based on the phases that we find ourselves in and the next phase that we are entering into. Meaning that a lot of training has been provided in terms of the exploration phase, the needs assessments that has been, what is it that Namibians need in terms of training, and then for and development, there's another round of bursaries or scholarships that has been offered by Petrofund, and I think they target that phase as well. When it comes to production, I think there will be another intense phase of what needs to be, or how Namibians should be trained in order to meaningfully participate in that. But it's always a process of anticipating the next phase. That is how the training is. Luis, I think maybe on one was on the issue of ownership, and one was on the issue of training. Yeah, please just.
Okay, so just on the ownership, the question was just what is the expected timeline for the 51% that is referred to? And then the second one was regarding that indicators on the training. Firstly was that training should be approved and that your own training is not really recognized. Then also the second part was on training was the unconditional part of the training, either bursaries or whatever, that it needs to be unconditional. A question mark on that, whether or not that can be, I mean.
I think on the timelines, or perhaps Mr. McLeod can touch on that. But with regards to the education or the training that they must be approved by the government, I think Mr. McLeod tells the public every day that this whole policy will be implemented in collaboration with many other entities. So it's not within our mandate, of course, as Upstream Petroleum Unit. We do not have an understanding of training, what do we call this? Curriculums and the accreditation, etc. But we want to do this in collaboration with those entities that are responsible for that or that have those mandates. And this is just to ensure that the trainings that are being offered to our people, to the Namibians, are indeed impactful training, and not just training for the man-hour, I don't know, those criteria that are used to determine that this is an impactful or a recognized training. So that's basically what we are referring to when we are saying that this must be approved by the ministry, because there will be a weighting on that also, that you have trained people for this amount of hours, or the KPIs are so many. It's not only the cost of training or the number of time, it's a whole lot. So we want to ensure that these trainings are impactful and are really indeed capacitating Namibians to be able to fully participate. And on the, that was what page? Expenses on scholarship, that they must not be conditional. It's because I think I indicated that we want to ensure that also the provisions or the requirements or the objectives of this policy are aligned to all other laws that are in existence in Namibia already. And we have seen that there is that practice of some companies investing in Namibians in the name of local content, but then the conditions they put on is that you have to, I will give you this training, but then you are not allowed to be promoted outside my entity for the next 3 years. That's limiting. We want growth. We want the Namibians to be the managers of this industry in years to come. So it's why we do not want these conditions set to the training. Training should be you capacitating Namibians to be able to participate in the industry, not in your firm. So that's what we are trying to refer to, that there must not be terms that are limiting the growth of the Namibians to fully serve the industry. I don't know if that helps.
Let me also just add to that on the issue of the on-job trainings or the trainings that is provided for the way we have an interest. We need to understand that this particular industry that we are establishing and growing into, number one, we are all learning. None of us are experts. We are all learning. But number two, this is a very, very specialized industry. It is very technical. And whenever we offer trainings and whenever we provide opportunities for Namibians to upskill themselves, it is very pertinent that there is credibility behind such trainings. Health, safety, and environment should be the priority above making money. And if we compromise on such standards through trainings that are substandard, then we are compromising the whole industry. We have seen in other countries what happened in terms of oil and gas not being managed well, not only from a governance point of view, but from an operational point of view. So it is important that when we provide trainings, this should be trainings that are accredited, basically. Those should be trainings that should not be substandard, in essence. Yeah. On the issue of 51%, we find ourselves growing our industry, and we cannot expect from the offset that all companies in Namibia should be 100% owned Namibian. That would be very unfair, because in as much as we are saying that the oil is ours, we don't have the financial capacity to extract that oil and to meaningfully contribute to the economy by ourselves. That is why we are inviting and we are setting a conducive environment for investors to come in, use their risk capital to do those operations, extractions, appraisal, development, and production. So during that period of time, we as Namibia, we do not have that capacity. But what we are saying is that there is a possibility to coexist. Whatever they are doing also have off-spins. If a certain company comes, an international oil major comes in Namibia with his risk capital, whatever business he is doing, such businesses must translate to economic value for Namibians. And how do you translate that? It means that the goods and services that needs to be procured needs to come from Namibia. The employment that needs to be sourced must be from Namibia. And also, skilling, upskilling, training must also benefit Namibians. And when you, as a major oil company, subcontract to whoever, those are foreign companies. But as we are growing the industry, we have to make sure that Namibians eventually also have the capacity to grow in this particular sector. So the two can coexist. You have the foreign-owned company, and then you have the Namibian local company. They can all coexist, where the foreign company is the rights holder. Wherever he needs the services, he needs to depend on a company that is in Namibia which can provide the services that it needs, and that company should be 51% locally owned. I hope I've answered your question, but please do have a follow-up question if you still feel that there is unclarity on that. Thank you.
Good morning to you all. My name is Johannes Shipanga, and thank you for the opportunity. We, the young people of Namibia, have sacrificed to obtain our training papers and medical for oil and gas, but the costs are too high. Our certificates are expiring before employment, and foreigners are filing position we are capable of doing. We are hungry for opportunities to contribute to our country and growth, not just for ourselves. My questions are, how can government and industry help us renew our costly papers and medicals? What policies will ensure our certificates remain valid while waiting for jobs? What steps are being taken to prioritize Namibians in employment over foreigners, including artisans and general workers? Can government create funds or subsidies to support local youth in critical sectors? How will government and company ensure oil and gas opportunity lead to long-term career for Namibians? If you check by nearby country like Angola, you will not find foreigners employed in basic positions such as laundry, cleaning, or general work, as like artisans work as well. Those are reserved for locals. Why does Namibia not enforce similar policies to ensure that such opportunities are given to Namibian first? And will government introduce strict policies to make sure investors prioritize local people, especially youth, in all levels of work? Thank you.
Thank you. Before, yeah, maybe.
Good morning. Thank you very much. My name is Tanya Kachipara. I would like to thank for this opportunity. First of all, I would like to say that I have actually perused through the local content policy quite a bit. And I noticed that it's a perfect policy. Indeed, it is potential. And there's certain challenges that I also realized within the policy, if I may use the floor, such as ensuring definitely compliances and enforcement of this policy will be a major issue, one. And secondly, I noticed that we also need to balance our local needs with the international standards. That's another issue that we have to definitely give attention to. And one thing that we all know, managing corruption and ensuring transparency in Namibia already is another major issue. And my fourth potential problem that I noticed on is that everybody so far have been over-addressing is the potential skills and gaps and capacity issue. That's my four major points that I've noticed on this local content policy. But I also would like to put a good hand of recommendation to say that end of the day, with any policy, your policy to be effective or implementation to be effective will depend on monitoring and evaluation. That's what we all know. And making sure that you have a careful planning and execution. And then the other question, okay, those were my points. Now, a question that I'm having is, sure, this document is big or no? What are the consequences in place for non-compliance of this policy requirements? I understand that the policy is clear and everything, but we haven't stated the clear consequences if companies don't actually comply with the policy, one. And then secondly, I have a major point for the municipality of Walvisbay, Honorable Councillor. Thank you for your availability. The colleague perhaps did not make it clear on what he wanted to state, but for further clearance, I would like to know the Walvisbay municipality in terms of this policy or this local content. How ready are you for what's coming to Walvisbay? One, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of local partnership with the local companies, I'm not talking about your regular maritime sessions. We are growing now. We're talking about oil and gas industry. How ready is the municipality of Walvisbay in terms of infrastructure of this town? And how are we going to make sure that roads are ready? How are we going to make sure that what the doctor mentioned here behind me, the maritime sector, the ecosystem there is set, and that we are actually following according to policies. We have colleagues here also from companies like Namcor, vessels, repair companies. They are set and ready. How ready are you? Let's take that all in consideration. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Just before we go to the next round of questions, very valuable inputs. Just on the first question that was asked about government's involvement. Look, it is not for government to really over-regulate this particular industry. We want to set the stage. We want to give the framework where each and every stakeholder contributes towards what government wants to achieve. Government would not be able to fulfill the job needs of each and every one, or whatever needs, but it is for the key stakeholders, it is for the oil companies, it is for the service companies, it is for the education sector, it is for the VTCs, it is the financial sector that provides finances for the SMEs to participate. It is all those stakeholders that needs to meaningfully contribute towards this successful industry, not only for government alone. Sometimes, as Namibians, we should steer away from the mindset that, you know, we would want government to do everything. Some sectors we would want to leave the industry to lead, and government making sure that the framework is in place, making sure that there's a conducive environment to prosper, making sure that jobs are created, making sure that people are educated, making sure that businesses thrive. That is what we want to achieve. We don't want to overcomplicate issues. At the end of the day, we need the private sector to drive the value, what we want to achieve. On the second contribution, yes, I think your questions is basically what I'm saying. A lot of people need to be getting involved. In as much as the stakeholders that are the operators, the service sectors and so on, you have the local and the regional authorities also equally that needs to come to the table. So your questions and your contributions are very valid. And I'm sure that the councillor that is here is also taking note of that. I'm not sure whether there will be an opportunity to respond, but what we basically want to do and achieve through this platform is to hear you and not just to provide answers to you. We want to hear you and come up with solutions to your queries. Thank you.
And I think there was a question on how monitoring will be done, yeah? The compliance aspect. There will be a division specifically responsible for compliance under the upstream petroleum unit, which will have inspectors that will be going out of their office to audit, to look at what is being said, whether what we have in the plans is what is being done on the ground. We'll have auditors, we'll have other many compliance personnel that will be ensuring that these companies are complying to their local content plans. So there will be a division responsible for compliance monitoring and ensuring that there's compliance. Meeting the standards, that's very, very, very true, and that's one of the findings of the study that was done. But within this policy also, we want to encourage that there are incubation hubs that will incubate Namibian entities to ensure that we deal with all these issues that are hindering Namibian or local firms from participating in the industry. And as it was said by Mr. McLeod, it's a collective effort. We want everybody to be on board to ensure that this happens. And the consequences of non-compliance, I think specific as to what will happen if you do not comply with A, what happens if you do not comply with B, that will be in the laws or in the regulations. But as per the policy right now, it stipulates that there will be penalties for non-compliances in a form of either fines or sanctions, etc. So definitely there will be penalties for non-compliances, which will come in the legal or legislative documents, because that cannot be stipulated in the law at this point. In a policy at this point. And there were a lot of questions from the gentleman, in a white shirt. I did not capture all of them because there were so many, but I just wanted to flag that this policy in its form right now, it reserves all the unskilled roles to the Namibians. Unskilled roles, all of them, cleaners, etc. They are all for the Namibians. And as to how we will ensure that the Namibians remains employed, I think that I spoke to that when I said that for those roles that currently cannot be employed, cannot be filled by the Namibians because of lack of qualifications, we want to ensure that there's understudy programs going on. We allocate a number of time that is required for whatever that role is. And after that specific time frame, we want to ensure that only Namibians are able to take over those roles. So there are a whole lot of mechanisms, and for all the objectives that are read out here, there are strategies. And those strategies are detailing out how we intend to ensure that we achieve those objectives. So maybe I invite everyone also to look into those strategies one by one to see if there's anything we can add or remove. But yeah, we try to make the strategies as comprehensive as possible. I think that's all I wanted to add. And yeah, there was a gentleman that spoke about a committee for the implementation of this policy. I also just wanted to flag that the policy document within itself on page 43 talks of the formation.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Pius Samuel. I'm from Breakwater Offshore Services. Firstly, we own and operate 2 offshore support vessels. And before I carry on, I just want to emphasize on what the doctor said. Was obviously, for example, with our crew, the idea is obviously to have 100% crew on board. But then obviously, due to the concerns that were raised also by the doctor here, we're finding it very difficult to have, Namibian, especially officers. But then it's also, I would also like to proudly say that we've recently promoted our first Namibian captain. This is where you start clapping hands. Thank you. Yes. I'm glad to see that the interim MD for Namcor is also here, and then the rest of the panel there. Because our concern mostly is that with especially in the upstream, that's usually where we play also. there's this concern always, and then you hear people always saying there are concerns of capacity and experience. In the drilling and exploration campaigns, for example, where those are services or sectors rather that we can also service, but we've experienced also that, and also read some reports that you don't have local offshore support companies and things like that. And then we've also had an experience where a foreign company then also calls or reaches out to us for a contract that is on our, that is in Namibia, that we think is counterproductive, one, and two, it would also then be going against the local policy content that we're trying to push. I will not actually be able to expand into a lot of details on this platform, but I just want to say in that space, we are there, and hopefully the MD, when we come knocking at your door, you will be able to, we'll be able to sit down and obviously craft ways and see. Because our loyalty lies with the Namibian people, and also, in terms of also skills development and skills transfer. We've engaged entities like NTA. We still to engage Petro Fund. Yeah, so importantly for us, I think it's just also to the transparency when these exploration campaigns are going on for the tendering processes, which is also a challenge that we've come to notice. But yeah, in the interest of time, I'm gonna end here, and yeah, thank you very much for the opportunity, and thank you for coming to us. Hopefully we'll engage on a much deeper level as time goes on. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Just before we move on, I think, bring the mic here. Just before we move on, please, can I just ask a special request? We are here only until 1 o'clock, and I've seen that there's a lot of hands. Can I please call upon everybody who wants to make a contribution? Please just shorten your contribution specifically to the point that you would want to address, so that we enable everybody else also to have their voices heard. Very important. And if you see that you have a long story, please, the emails are there. You are more than welcome to give your contributions also, and then we will look into it. We are still going to be available for 2 weeks to receiving your email contributions. Please, let us just give each other an opportunity. I would say, if you can minimize it maybe to 1 minute at the most. Thank you so much.
Registration register circulating. Please, if you have not signed it, make sure that you have signed it and you provide your email address, just so that you can be, yeah.
Thank you. Okay, good morning, and thanks very much for the opportunity and for preparing the venue and also the policy. My name is Patrick. I'm working for Manica. I'm a German import, 20 years in the country now, so I hope I qualify as local content. We note that you speak about timelines and the phased approach and also targets to be defined, which will then lead to KPIs. Thanks, Louise. It's good to note that the reporting requirements at the end of the policy will hopefully come to a very standardized report that can actually be compared apples for apples and peers for peers, and not any funny different way possibly. Now my question is, if we understand Mr. McLuhan correctly, the policy will lead to a law, will lead to regulation. When we read oil and gas contracts, they normally speak of a clause saying time is of essence. My question is, when can we expect those things? Thank you.
That's a very good question, and let me just answer it now. What people don't know, and this is very important for us to take note of this. The doctor mentioned that in Nigeria, after so many years, they only came up with a national policy on local content in 2009. Our law, the current Exploration and Production Act of 1991, as well as our petroleum agreement, very old laws. But if you look into it, there is a provision that speaks to goods and services. There's a provision that speaks to employment. There's a provision that speaks to education and training. So we are actually the forebearers. Haven't even discovered any oil. We are the forebearers of local content. Whereas countries that have discovered oil for many years are only now focusing on local content. Our local content already started in 1991. What we want to achieve here is just to expand and give more meaning to what those provisions are saying, so that when we are done with our inputs here, we go back to those particular provisions and crystallize it, so it can speak to basically what we want to achieve as a country. So local content provisions are already embedded in our laws. Companies are already complying to that. We have seen our local Namibian companies are benefiting from contracts that are given by international oil companies. So it is already there. So in terms of timelines, yes, law is there. There's no excuse for people not to comply. It is there. What is not there is, if you don't comply, what will happen to you? That is a problem, and that is where we want now to go, expand it more. Yes, how sooner we can finish this process, how sooner we can develop and cross over and translate this policy into expanding the provisions in the Act through an amendment, and then how sooner we can then translate it into a regulation. It all depends on how and how quick we respond to all this. It is something that we want to achieve at the shortest possible time. We want to achieve the local content gazetting at least before the end of this year, so that next year we start with amending the provisions of the law that speaks to the local content, and then also create regulations for that. So we are very ambitious in this process. I hope I answered your questions. Yeah, thank you. Next question, please.
Good afternoon. All right. Sorry, I want to address you as predator and prey, both. Meaning, okay, my name is Jaap, DME Namibia. We've been working in the oil and gas industry for the past 22 years, supporting the west coast of Africa, from seismic to refineries, the whole process. Now, we send regular teams, we perform regular works in other countries, be it Nigeria, Angola, Ghana, wherever. Now, I don't see a lot in that policy protecting, I see a lot protecting incoming business, but there's nothing developing or protecting existing business and the development thereof. So, something else I can't remember. Thank you.
Sorry, I have the mic. Can you just elaborate more on that so that I can just get a better understanding when you say protecting? Yeah, protecting of local businesses.
There's already existing infrastructure in existing businesses that does a lot of the work that will be required. The capacity might be a bit short, but these companies can develop and grow. There's a whole host of companies that does a lot of the stuff that will be required, be it logistics, engineering, whatever. But these companies can develop. Now, this policy allows for a lot of other foreign companies to come in based on that framework, which is probably not required. There can be measures put in place to make it more difficult for a foreign entity to register.
Thank you. What is your name, sir?
Jaap.
Jaap. Actually, the policy is speaking the opposite. Yeah? The policy is speaking about local content. It's about what is there needs to be protected and enhanced and growth further. Businesses that are in Namibia needs to be prioritized in terms of what they are doing. We need to provide them with the necessary businesses, necessary opportunities. We need to involve them. We need to provide Namibians with the necessary training and so on. So, in as much as we look after the interests of the investor. We very strongly emphasize on creating value in country, providing protection towards Namibians, Namibian businesses, goods and services that needs to be procured here, Namibians that needs to be trained in order for us to capture enough economic value other than just the taxes and royalties that are being paid to the country. Thank you.
Good morning. Knowledge Chipinga here from the Namibian Association for Offshore Oil and Gas Service Providers. I think I'll start off with trying to understand there's a gray area that deals actually with local content versus Namibianization. And I think that's one area we need to clarify. And I think it will also deal with the aspect of all these, the foreign-owned entities. I think somehow we need to look at it maybe to create categories to say what is local content really. Categories in terms of, say, a Namibian company registered here, especially in the areas we can't participate, like the Tier 1 service companies, for example, your SLB, your Halliburton, and all that. We know definitely getting ownership or Namibian ownership in some of these entities is very difficult, especially when it comes to capital. And we don't have enough capital to invest in such entities. And if you look at the balance sheet of these entities, basically, it's really, really impossible. The other part then that we need to deal with is actually the alignment to our existing law. For example, from an employment perspective, looking at the affirmative action plans that need to be in place. The policy is not speaking around that. How do we then create that integration, basically? And I think that is important, also speaking to what the doctor referred to. I remember at the last local content conference we had at Safari, Carlo, we had some interventions made, and part of that conversation also incorporated the aspect of how the Petroleum Act is currently constituted, of which you have moving vehicles, which are your rigs and so on. But then that mandate sits with the Ministry of Works and Transport. But then, through the Petroleum Act, it's a delegated function. So now, how do we then deal with that limitations through the Merchant Shipping Act and the Admiralty Act in order for us to ensure that it doesn't hold up operations in the oil and gas industry? Another part is also the involvement of trade unions in the implementation itself, because we're facing a lot of employment issues in the industry, and it's happening on a daily basis. We're seeing recruitment agencies taking advantage of Namibians and so on. So we need to find a way on how we can involve the trade unions as well as the employers' federations as well to play a role in this area. Another aspect also is actually the modern cabotage, because we don't have a cabotage law in Namibia. So that is also an area we need to start looking into, basically looking at, for example, your shipping industry or ship repair industry that exists, where majority service companies we are seeing today were actually given birth through that. So how is it that we're able actually to ensure that we then create a transitional strategy around that as well also? My last one will be dealing around industrialization. As much as we're speaking of services and all that, the policy is silent on industrialization because there are some areas we are able to create industries within Namibia, but all we're looking at is more from a service provision opposed to actually creating industry here locally, and that way we're able actually to compel some of these companies to actually come to Namibia as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Much of what you said is very relevant, and those are your contributions. We have taken note of that. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
The document itself. Okay.
Hi everyone, my name is Caroline Njala. I am from Kratz Engineering, Specialist Process Analyst. My experience with the oil and gas is in the implementation of quality management systems. And the gap that we have identified so far is that once business comes, oil and gas comes here, there is a need for quality management whereby they have very strong standards that need to be followed. Once we implement those standards, we need to enforce them even with the Namibian small businesses. If we subcontract something out, then the gap that we identified is that the small businesses, be it even in procurement, they don't have those requirements. So then we need to look at other avenues. So that is a very big gap that we have identified so far. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I don't think I need to give a response, but we are taking note of that. That is a very valuable contribution. Thank you. Yeah, we will look into it.
Yeah, no, we are cognizant of that because it was also one of the findings of the industry baseline study. And we are looking at coming up with mechanisms that we can use as a country to ensure that we assist the SMEs to comply with the quality safety standards that are, because even those that can do the work, they have struggles or issues with meeting those standards. So we are it's a good contribution. Thank you so much. Yeah.
I think it's good afternoon already. Well, my name is Quentin Simon, current country manager of a company called Oryx Constructors. As Jaap has mentioned, been privileged to be in the oil and gas upstream industry for the last 20 years, supporting from Walvisbay as most of the community sitting in the hall today. So I don't think oil and gas is a foreign concept for us as an industry. So I've got a few points I want to touch on. I'm glad to understand and hear that there's cross-pollination when it comes to the different ministries, when it comes to the accumulation of this policy. I think it's very important. We started the repair and maintenance industry in Namibia, and we've realized in the past that there is changes and communications being held independently. And then, for example, on visas and permits, there's changes made without consultation to other industries like the Ministry of Works and Transport, where the repair and maintenance and maritime industry is part of. So I'm glad to hear that. Secondly, what I think Jaap also referred to protecting the marine engineering company. We all understand the biggest contributor to employment will be the construction phase when it comes to the oil and gas, when it comes to FID being reached, and the subsea infrastructure to be constructed. Currently, a lot of our engineering organization is limited to lack of infrastructure within ports, within road, within rail. So we are going to miss out on this opportunity, and our people are going to miss out on the bulk of employment opportunity with regards to this. So to protect the industry, I truly believe as part of the local policy, it must indicate anything like SIPEM, Technip, FCM, all these guys that's going to construct mud maps, pools, jumpers, must identify a local entity to be able to upskill just the entity, not just the people. Or else we're going to wait 55 years, and then we'll only be able to construct it in country, like the Nigerian companies and Angolan companies, not just the people. The companies also needs to be developed. For us as an organization to spend millions on R&D without the clarifications and a guarantee of a purchase order to be able to construct this stuff is, no one will ever do that. I won't be able to spend 50, 60 million in R&D developing if my government can't even provide me the infrastructure to backload this, to take it to site. So it's important for us then to identify local engineering companies, put them with a Syntec, put them with a HRT, put them with a SIPEM or Technip FCM, and tell them, you work with us in collaboration in Singapore or China, developing and constructing these items so we can understand the R&D, we can change our mindset when it comes to safety. Because at the present stage, due to lack of infrastructure, we will not be exposed to that. Yes, we've got 20 welders that's going to be exposed to that. We're going to have 5 safety washers going to be exposed to that. But we as an organization can't understand cash flows, we don't understand execution, we don't understand material. All of these companies ask for NORSOC standards. Just to download that NORSOC standard costs you $25,000 Namibian, just to download. Then you haven't even developed the people. So from my perspective, it's very important to include in this. Yes, if any service or engineering happens out of this country, we need to involve localized companies in order to transfer them to the areas of where the stuff will be built. SMB, Jensen, when it comes to flow and production units, yes, we're going to send 20 welders over there to work in the shipyard to build this FPSO. But which of our engineering organizations here is going to have the exposure to how it works, how the processes work? If we have to repair and maintenance or send maintenance crews on board, what's the processes? We don't understand it because we as an organization that's responsible, like you've mentioned, to train and develop these people, is not exposed to this. We don't understand it. Now this rig comes here, or the SPFL come here, we need to send maintenance crews. Now we're 6 months behind because now we have to upskill ourselves as an organization, as management, to be able to execute that. So I think that's a part where I have identified in the policy which is lacking. It's in-country execution we are covering brilliantly, and I have to applaud what work you have done and how far you have reached. But the problem is industries that is not being currently and will not be currently executed due to lack of infrastructure within our country. It's going to be 10 years later, then we have infrastructure, Northport has been built, Namport has been increased, private ports has been built, and then we as organizations have to start catching up. And at that time, it's too late. So that's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. Just give the mic back to him. Can I have your name, please? And then I would also want you to please do me a favor, note down the email address. I will note down your name, and I would like you to just, what you said, just elaborate it more in the writing.
No problem.
Thank
My
you
name
so
is
much.
Quentin Simon. I think my colleagues right and left of me has pages like this, which we'll definitely send on to you as a team. Because I call myself a Namibian brand ambassador, and that's why I'm so passionate about this. So thank you very much.
But thank you for your contribution. Thank you.
I think if you can also help us expand on 6.7, objective number 6.7 is talking about most of the things that you have spoken in your contribution. So if you can just go through it and see what you can add on there. Please, thank you.
Good day, thank you very much. My name is Anton Pretorius. I'd like to compliment on the document. I think it's structured, it's going to be tweaked. There's a vision of a current state and a future state. And the future state is clear legislation, regulations. I'm happy to understand there is some legislation in place that could be regulated to sooner than having to go the very long route of my impression, that there could be some legislative and maybe consequences coming on the shorter term. The question was asked before, how long is the cycle going to take? But I can see, it appears to me there is some strategies to get at least some effect, and some will come later, and I'm very happy with that. The problem that we have at the moment is, in the current state and future state, is we do not have much clarity. There's a huge amount of uncertainty, and many of the questions that people have asked today is, are we going to have an FID? We can have all this and say, we want to know that and that, we want to ask you a lot of questions. Is there going to be a development phase? We don't know. And you need competencies, we need ISOs, we need capital, we need infrastructure. But they need capital, and people need to invest. And as we know, when the button is pushed for development phase, that ball is traveling away from you at speed, you'll never catch it. And unfortunately, it's a chicken and egg. And a lot of it is money-driven. And that's not freely available. So an issue for me that happens is that with that speed of light, what's going to happen? The government, state-owned enterprises, but mostly government, in my book has not demonstrated previously, and I know we have a new team, and I sense more drive to execute the fundamentals, which we know. We don't have to know with this development phase, it just has to be done. Because we have lagged behind in many issues, and there was a lack of execution. I'll give you an example. We know the maritime legislation. I've championed for 10 years, employed Professor Stanley Lands. We made 5 presentations to Works and Transport. I've submitted for the latest law reform. And Namibians are being disenfranchised because government cannot get it together. All these vessels drilling here could have had Namibian crew on. Since independence, 30 years, none of that legislation has been done. Admiralty Act 1860 laws are applicable. So we have now a lot of maritime activities. Accidents going to happen. None of the catamarans taking people around here has got safety certifications in terms of the law. The port captain takes it on him to do that. So I'd really like to say they need to execute. The other problem that we have in this transition period is the onion. You have the totals, you have the Halliburtons, then you have the more specialists, well specialists, then you get to logistics, and then you get to hotels and all that. But in this area of uncertainty, people are applying rules to what they regard it. I'll give an example. If I go to some state-owned enterprises and they say you have to be 51% racially disadvantaged, the other ones say you have to be PDN. The definition of this PDN, racially gender disadvantage, is not very clear. There's the law which you can go and fight, but on the other hand, the law should start saying if we need to be racially disadvantaged, then let's do it. Because there's the law, but the spirit, and there's a disconnect there if we really dig into it. And I'd like those things of unclear issues must be done, especially what we mentioned with Manica. Manica is 100% foreign-owned, invested a lot in labor. I applied for something at Namcor. It asked me, what is my racial disadvantage status? But we both rent in the same organization. Now, the transparency is not there, the policy is not clear. And we have that with other state-owned enterprises. So we need to, in the interim, try and get some sanity about the onion, which part of the onion need to be there, and even if it's done through the oil industry, informally. But I will, I know time is of the essence. I will document all the information I have and send it to the address. And there's quite a lot that one can have. And like we said, there's pages of it.
Good morning again, sorry to come back, but there's some things that have come up. When it comes to the oil and gas going forward, I think the idea, the policy should also be, it should be the age of the middlemen. If we do not have the capacity, and if we do not have the training or capabilities in terms of volume, in terms of equipment and so on, then the policy should enable us or force the operators to look at us as middlemen in the very least. That should be one of the steps. I think I've said that before, but what I wanted to find out, and my question to the panel is, do you have or do you plan to have a database of companies, Namibian-owned 100% companies, that can describe to you what exactly their capabilities are and what they do? Is that something that you have? And so that it speaks to what these two previous speakers have spoken. Yeah, thank you, that's it.
I think in short, yes, we do have those plans. Once the database is up, we will communicate on all the platforms so that you can all register. We have plans to have a database where all the local entities are registered on, with their capabilities, their needs, etc., for us also to know where do we need to assist building capacity, etc. Yeah.
I just wanted to also comment on the previous commentator regarding development. Of course, here's capital intensive, and apart from that, we're having the ecosystem that is involved. But this one thing that we are working on when we're talking about the final investment decision. And then we look at things like the environmental management plan. And then we also look at the field development plan. What we're saying is we're having parties that are involved from the government perspective, the upstream petroleum unit. We're having Namcor being the state oil company, and all those that are involved. When we're saying the local content policy, of course, companies that are going to participate, they are also shareholders to or stakeholders to this. Now, we are not going to set off the development stage without sorting ourselves in terms of regulations and in terms of capital. Of course, that is one thing. And when it comes to development, we're looking forward to having our partners like the ones that are leading in these particular licenses or blocks, being the lead singers in acquiring first capital and making sure that on the ground we're having the regulatory body to make sure that for instance, things like the marine ecosystem in this regard is taken care of. What we're saying is development comes, but it doesn't come just like that. There are stages and activities, regulations, and everything that have to be sorted and in place. And of course, these are things that some of these regulations are already part of our laws, like the oil and gas industry is currently being spearheaded by the Petroleum Act. But of course, our local content here will also have to speak to some regulatory bodies within our petroleum industry in Namibia. So what we're saying is, of course, development is coming, but we're going to meet development head-on, not just as people that are coming into development, but also when we're saying final investment decision and the fair development plans, these are that are going to make sure that whatever is needed somehow should be in place. Thank you. Just to comment.
Is it on? Good day. I'm going to keep it very short. I must say we're one of the first possibly beneficiary of local content. We're currently employing 60 employees in the oil and gas sector. I haven't read the policy or the document on local content, but one thing I would want it to emphasize, if it hasn't, it's the capacity. Capacity in terms of financial capacity, because we went through a mud just to keep standing till now. Because you go to financial institution, unfortunately the oil and gas contracts don't come as our normal local contracts where they say, provide us with 15 trucks, which is easy for you to go to the bank and say, okay, here's my contract, it's stating that I must provide 15 trucks. But the oil and gas comes with a contract, companies come with a contract that say, no, you have a contract to provide logistical services to them. Now for you to go to it's an open contract. So I hope that the document itself is also bringing the banking sectors together so that they understand that this is a invest and wait game, unfortunately. That's how we take it. But we are glad that there's a policy that is in place, and it did find us ongoing. Like I said, we went through a mud because of lack of financial capacity. And that need to be very clear through the financial institution, through the support of the Ministry of Trade, or whatever policies that is able to support the local businesses that are coming up. You may get an opportunity, but if there is no financial backing, you have 6 months and you are out of the game, because you cannot keep complying if you don't have the financial capacity.
In short, yes, it's captured under Objective 6.6. We'll appreciate it if you can study it and see where you can add or where we can expand. Thank you.
Hi. Aaron again, just to maybe make it, just a quick comment. I think the Petro Fund plays a very instrumental role, and Namcor as well. I mean, I must say that I've been a beneficiary of the Namcor bursary or scholarship in 1998. And then today, we actually supply or support services actually on the upstream from our Tate Energy. So thank you to Namcor as well for that. I think my question is more on the policy, whether it's going to be hindering or attractive to the IOCs. It's our resources, but how is the policy set up so that you can attract others to come in to spearhead? Because if there's no other investments coming in, the policy, how attractive will the policy be? So that once the policy is in place, that it actually makes it easy for us to get to the FID and also to be able to actually be in the oil and gas upstream. So thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much. My name is Justina Erastus, and I am a legal practitioner in training and founder of the Youth in Oil and Gas Summit. So I'm the youth advocate of Walvisbay. So I had an opportunity to go through the draft. I think it's quite realistic. I would just suggest more expansion, especially on youth opportunities in the oil and gas sector. In more expansion in terms of just making sure that there is a round of internships and apprenticeships for every contractor, every tier 1 operator, and that has to be captured in the policy so that companies don't just take one individual, young black Namibian, and that ticks a box, but actually a set number that is captured in the policy so that it is followed. I would also maybe just suggest that government does connect with training institutions all the way from varsity all the way to VTC. And there is actually a plan that graduates who are in the who are operating in the or studying towards oil and gas or engineering, straight from varsity, have a plan straight into these IOCs or these operators or contractors, into these companies, so that they get practical training, and also just to prioritize the harbor towns like Walvisbay and Lüderitz. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much and good afternoon. Allow me to just add to what the two last speakers have said before I could say to respond to the Namcor specific issues. I think what, first of all, let me also appreciate everybody that is here, that has participated, and that has consumed what has been said today. The oil and gas local content policy is a trendsetter as much as it is mindset driver. That it is intended to create a total mindset shift in Namibia. And therefore, it is a cross-cutting issue. It does not stay with the oil and gas industry only. Yes, it builds on existing laws of Namibia. It draws and talks to the oil and gas on this, but it is a cross-cutting issue that should shake everybody's mind and dream. That the intention of the Namibian government is oil and gas industry to stimulate domestic economy greatly, inclusively, balanced, but also that mindset must trickle down to all stakeholders in the oil and gas, as well as all other industries. Having said that, I'm also just want to add that the training component it speaks to makes that provision for coordination throughout the different layers. But it is important that it does not stop at VDC and universities and technicons or technical institutions, but goes down to schools, including primary schools, so that we can create the pool of skills that Namibia needs in future. It is my dream and it is the intention of government that our children must start thinking bigger, look at possibilities that was not there before, and therefore give more attention to school, and therefore have career opportunities. And I think the youth could also engage in different discussions, talking about different skills net that is needed in the industry, because that is also not necessarily known. So I think the conversation, and thanks for the team, is to ignite a new wave. And I'm happy I'm joining the team from the industry, and especially in Walvisbay, because it goes with the waves. It is indeed a new wave. And I want to mention that, yes, government has done over the years also a lot of research, all other exploration activities that has happened. We have a database, and the database is adding up every day. Therefore, we have prepared, and I'm happy to hear about local content being involved for local companies in the industry already. It is encouraging, including Maninga Group. Nobody is excluded. But the important thing is, these policies we talk about must trigger through. It is a whole mindset change. So everybody must implement that in its own lifestyle. Coming back to the Namcor specific issue, I think there is a misconception. Namcor is, yes, 100% government owned. Namcor is not a regulator. Government is. Namcor advises government as a government institution on issues related to petroleum, be it for upstream and for downstream. And the whole purpose why it was formed, why government felt it suit to be involved in this industry, is for petroleum security. It's a national question. As a public institution, we are there to ensure that at no time should Namibia's tanks run dry. Because ook Afrikaans, né? So at no point should it run dry. And it has happened in our neighboring countries. We know what we are talking about. Therefore, we need to have a presence. And we also need to have downstream at the service level footprints. And I think we mustn't try to eliminate competition some way. Namcor is taking a very small part of the market share, but it is an important role player for government. So, and I think the impression that was created that we are collecting data, government collects data, not Namcor. Probably we host the instruments that does the calculations, because government we cannot double employ. So it is just a coordination point. But we do not have conflicting roles. And let's appreciate that presence of Namcor as a brand, I have some of our doctor is also in the promoting the representing the Namcor brand, but I think we serve a purpose. Let's hold hands together. If there was no Namcor, we wouldn't have talked today about this, ne? But the government ensures that there is a separation in the different roles. That's why the upstream unit is now also there in the Office of the Presidency to ensure that. And we are definitely forerunners of first implementers of the government policies, and we have to uphold and meet the expectations. We have to do what we expect from industry to do. Allow me to also just mention that as much as we have all other policies, we also have the blue economy, how do they call it? The Benguela structure that deals with, and there is a blue economy policy that addresses the general issues of the blue economy. But we welcome and are appreciative of the inputs, quite informative, and also helping me to get at par on the industry that I've just entered to. Thank you very much. I think I have covered what I wanted to say. So I hope I've answered that Namcor is not having conflicting roles, but we are there to ensure that we fulfill government mandate of ensuring petroleum security, supply security. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Honorable Hinda, Interim MD of Namcor. I think I just want to end with two things. Number one, before we hand over for the closing remarks, I've seen a gentleman here that I really want to pass the mic on to, and I would want to hear his voice. He has been promoting this seminar or this session on social media, and I saw he's in attendance, and I feel like he hasn't gotten an opportunity to say something, and I'm honoring him now to give this mic specifically to him, Mr. Hafeni, just to say something, please. I want to hear your voice.
Yeah, you put me on the spot. Yeah, firstly, I wish to express my appreciation to the central government, the 8th administration, for the initiative to consult its grassroots on this very dominant global economic industry. The government has outlined an important economic initiative to fund young entrepreneurs between ages of 18 to 35, enabling them to actively participate and contribute in the economic sector. The reason why I've mentioned this one is like the government's already busy. It's outlined that, so I'm saying that if we can learn from that, this oil, it's ours. From this experience, it's my wish that we establish new economic standards and mechanisms that will ensure genuine economic inclusion, particularly for grassroots communities across Namibia. In Namibia, we have 14 regions, 121 constituencies. The president talks about natural beneficiation. Namibia, we are too few to be poor. And look like Namibia has got now milk. And the president wants all Namibians. Obviously, like you've said, not everybody will be able to, those who are, I think we need to educate. I think that's why I'm going now to the education component. Of course, this industry requires extensive expertise. Therefore, emphasis must be placed on developing training programs that build capacity of potential entrepreneurs and service providers, ensuring they are well prepared to seize the opportunities presented. You know, this is actually a wonderful opportunity. I can tell the House, not all Namibians, I think people who are here probably know about oil. But the other Namibians out there, they want education. What are the opportunities? They want to prepare themselves so that they can participate. Hence, obviously, I think that's why you're here. And my message is just that let us make sure that all Namibians are part and parcel of this. Obviously, the experts are here. As an entrepreneur, we're all excited about the oil. But I can tell you that we need more platforms. The Ministry of International Relations and Trade can play a critical role with NIPDB to come up with packages focusing on the 14 regions and the constituency on creating a content on education and the opportunities. But so far, thank you for giving me the platform. I was not ready. I was just trying to also listen to learn. And I think me being here, I've learned a lot from those who are here. But yeah, thank you. I hand over the mic, and welcome to Erongo Region, and I hope that the Erongo Region entrepreneurs are taking advantage of this opportunity, and hopefully there will be the 2040 picture. It really inspired me a lot. Mr. Shani, you put up 2040, that picture, to 2040. Yeah, so we're looking forward to that picture.
Thank you so much. So thank you so much, Mr. Afeni. We acknowledge and we appreciate your input, especially on the issue of the financial sector that needs to come on board as well. Just before I hand over to the Honorable Councillor to do the closing remark, I just want to say a few words. I want to say first and foremost, thank you so much, Walvisbay. Thank you so much, Erongo, for coming, participating, sharing ideas, giving your perspectives, and looking forward, also the optimism and looking forward on how we as government wants to shape this particular industry. I would like to echo just what the President has said, and also what Mr. Afeni also said, is that her voice is always about, or her message is always about, inclusivity and making sure that all Namibians benefit from these natural resources. She made a very, very profound statement to say that we are too few to be poor. And if we have a sector like this that has the potential to shape the industry, to shape the economy, it is very important that each and everybody, directly and indirectly, benefits from this particular sector. And that is why it is important, before we carve the way forward, we need to come down to the communities, and we need to hear what is it that the communities wants to see, how this is achieved. So thank you once again for your participation, for your contributions. It is well noted, and please, the email address is there for any further inputs that you would want to give. We are there to listen to it. This administration is very serious about transparency, inclusivity, and no tolerance for corruption. So this is how we want to shape this particular industry. Thank you so much.
May we please give our panelists another round of applause, please. We would like to thank each and every one of you for availing yourselves today. Once again, as I have mentioned earlier, we are here to serve you, and it has been an honor. I would like to call upon the Honorable Councillor Olivia Andrews, representing the Walvisbay Municipality. Please give her a round of applause. Thank you.
And then I broke the mic. Sorry, apologies.
Good afternoon, everyone. I see Tanya left. I just wanted to tell her that I took note of a question, not the platform, to answer today. Good afternoon, everyone. I stand on the protocol already established by the Director of Ceremonies. It is my privilege to deliver the closing remarks at the conclusion of today's I broke it. Okay, now it's working. Allow me first to express our deepest gratitude to the Office of the President for leading this process with such commitment. I also thank all the stakeholders who have traveled from near and far to join us here in Walvisbay. Your presence is a sign of how much this policy matters to Namibia's future. To all the participants, whether from government, industry, traditional leadership, or civil society, thank you for your constructive contributions. It is through voices that this policy will take shape in a way that reflects the needs and inspiration of our people. What has become clear in our discussions is that local content, it's not just about contracts or percentages. It is about people, dignity, and opportunity. It is about ensuring that when this new industry grows, ordinary Namibians, our youth, our women, our entrepreneurs are able to take part and to benefit. For Walvisbay, this message resonates deeply. Our town has always been a place of opportunity. From our role in trade and fisheries to being a lifeline of logistics for the nation, we know what it means to be at the center of economic growth. With petroleum, our role will only grow, but we must ensure that the growth does not pass by our communities. I was particularly encouraged by the emphasis on partnership. Government alone cannot achieve local content. Industry alone cannot carry the weight. Communities alone cannot drive the change, but together, through collaboration, we can. As we close this chapter of consultations, let us not see today as an ending, but as the beginning of a journey where Namibia uses its petroleum wealth to build skills, industries, and communities that are strong and resilient. A journey where we ensure that every Namibian has a fair chance to participate. Ladies and gentlemen, petroleum may be found beneath our waters, but the true resource of Namibia lies in our people. If we invest in them, empower them, and include them, then the future will be bright. Not just for Walvisbay, not just for Erongo, but for the whole nation. With those words, I officially close the National Upstream Petroleum Local Content Policy consultations here in Walvisbay. I thank you and wish you all safe travels. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Councillor Olivia Andrews. Before we close with the national and AU anthem, I want you to take a look at your neighbor and say the oil is ours, but nice and proud. Yes, the oil is indeed ours. It is indeed ours. I would like to leave you with this African proverb. If the roots are deep, you have no need to fear the wind. Let us make this local content policy well equipped to ensure that the Namibian citizens, no matter your race, color, or class, may benefit. Thank you. May we all rise for the national and AU anthem.
Let us all unite and celebrate together the victories won for our liberation. Let us dedicate ourselves to rise together to defend
Thank you. You may be seated. Kindly please find outside there will be some snacks available, a light lunch for you all. Please do make sure you take part in that. It has been an honor.